Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I wanted to bring you guys a quick guide on how to unlock the Guardian modules. There are 6 total unlockable Guardian modules. Of the 6, I'd recommend the FSD booster and the shield reinforcement. The FSD booster is the main reason why I even pursued getting the Guardian modules. It can add up to 10.5 light year jump range. That's a really significant increase in jump range, especially if you're outfitting on a combat ship that usually struggles with its jump range, or maybe you're just trying to push your exploration ship from the 60s to 70s or 70s to 80s. Anyway, first things first, you're going to need to make a list of which modules you want. This will tell you how many of which type of material you need to gather. I'm going to put a link in the description where you can find each of the modules and their required components. If you're on PC, you don't have to do this the old-fashioned way. There's a tool called ED Engineer, which will keep track of all of the material gathering for you. I'll leave a link to ED Engineer in the description as well. I went ahead and decided that while I was out here at the site to go ahead and grind for all the modules so I didn't ever have to make a return trip. But if you only want the FSD booster or the shield booster, then your time spent gathering materials is going to be a lot less. The next thing you're going to need to do is outfit your ship. You're going to be traveling about 800 light years from the bubble. Here's a good base asp exploration ship build for going to the Guardian module site. The only thing that's really required is the SRV bay, but you really should plan your build in a medium ship. That way you can land close to the Guardian module site. The point defense protect against the Guardian Sentinel's missile attacks. You'll also need a pretty good stock of sulfur and phosphorus for SRV refuels and SRV rearms. After outfitting your ship, it's time to head out to the system. Search for this system in your galaxy map, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name, and target planet B3. Once you're close enough on approach to planet B3, say within 20 light seconds or so, you can open up your navigation panel and target a Guardian structure. If you feel like making a little extra credits, you can use the FSS scanner. The system is worth over 600,000 credits if you hand in the exploration data. After landing at the site, there are 6 pylon locations that you'll need to activate. You're required to start in position 1 and have numbered them in an optimal route around the site. Guardian Sentinels will spawn at certain pylon locations. They're not very hard to fight and you shouldn't have trouble taking care of them. It just requires 4 pips to weapons and 2 pips to shields. 2 Guardian Sentinels will spawn in the first pylon location when you first activate the system. 1 Sentinel will spawn in position 4, 5, and 6. Sometimes there's 1 and 2. When you activate all 6 pylons, 4 Guardian Sentinels will spawn. A final 2 Guardian Sentinels will spawn after you drop the relic and scan for the module blueprint data. Here I am approaching the first pylon location. You have to go past the pylon to a little X marked on the ground. This will trigger the pylon system. This is also the same spot you'll have to drop the ancient relic once you've completed all 6 pylons. As I said before, when you first trigger the first pylon location, 2 Guardian Sentinels will spawn, so you need to put your pips into system and weapons. After you've dealt with the Guardian Sentinels, you'll have to drive around the site and approach the pylon locations. To charge a pylon fully, you'll have to shoot the blue orb with your SRV turret. You should get a notification on the top right of your screen that you've fully charged the pylon. It'll also give you a count of how many total pylons are charged. Starting the first pylon does trigger a timer, however each additional pylon that you charge adds time to it. You should finish with plenty of time. Once you've charged the last of the 6 pylons, the timer will go away and you have an indefinite amount of time to claim the Guardian module blueprint data. After dealing with the 4 Guardian Sentinels that spawn when you complete the 6th and last pylon, you should use this time to go around and destroy the destructive panels that you can target on these pylons. Most of the time the material will fall to the ground. Sometimes you have to get a little creative to pick it up. There are 7 spire locations that have 3 destructive panels that you can shoot to destroy to reveal Guardian material. Like I said before, sometimes they don't fall to the ground and you have to get a little creative to pick them up. Here's an overview of the site showing the destructive panel locations. The material drops from the destructive panels are persistent, so each time you relog, the same materials will be in the same spots. That way you can target specific materials if you know which ones you're short on. In addition to the destructive panels for the Guardian materials, there's also obelisks that you can scan for data. Here are their locations. After you've gathered all the material from the destructive panels and scanned all the obelisks, you'll need to target one of these glowing spires for an ancient relic. Once you pick up the ancient relic, you'll need to take it to the X just above the first pylon location. There you'll need to jettison it. Once you jettison the relic, a big blue glowing orb will appear in front of you. You'll need to scan this for the Guardian module blueprint data. As soon as you've scanned this, 2 more Guardian Sentinels will appear. After dealing with the final 2 Sentinels, you'll need to drive roughly 200 meters away from the Guardian structure. Either rearm or refuel your SRV as needed, and relog. You should plan each run to take roughly 20 to 35 minutes. If you don't drive far enough away from the site on relog, some crazy things might happen. Don't make the same mistake I did. If you've gathered all the module blueprint data you need and all the materials from the Guardian structure, you can head to an ancient ruin site that has 2 obelisks right next to each other. This makes scanning and relogging for rare data like the pattern epsilon data very easy. From my experience gathering the material, the hardest to gather was the technology component and the pattern epsilon data, but knowing that the destructive panel locations are persistent allows you to target the technology component efficiently. The pattern epsilon data, however, is RNG and will require a lot of relogs. That's why the 2 obelisks next to each other is an ideal location. Once you've gathered all the Guardian material components and Guardian data, you'll be required to use a resource like eddb.io to search for the commodity components that can be bought at stations. So in summary, you're going to need to make a list of which modules you want, which will tell you exactly how many of which component you're required to collect. Using a resource like ED Engineer if you're on PC will make this material gathering list a lot easier to keep up with. The second step would be to outfit your ship properly. It's very advisable to bring a medium ship so you can land close to the Guardian structure. You'll also need a couple point defense, an SRV, and a fairly large jump range. You'll also need a fairly large stock of sulfur and phosphorus for the SRV rearm and SRV refuel. The third step would be to jump out to the target system and head towards planet B3. When you're within about 100 light seconds or so, target the Guardian structure in your navigation panel. The fourth step is to head to the X above the first pylon location so you can activate the pylons so that they can be charged. You'll also need to put 2 pips into systems and 4 pips into weapons so that you can take on the Guardian Sentinels that'll spawn at each pylon location or at certain checkpoints along the way. After activating all 6 pylons and clearing the timer, you'll need to maneuver around the site, scanning the obelisk for data, and destroying the destructive panels to pick up the components. You'll also need to collect the material dropped from destroying the Guardian Sentinels. Once you scan all the obelisks and collect all the components, you'll need to gather an ancient relic to go drop on the X above the first pylon. After dropping the relic on the X, the orb will appear that can be scanned for the module data and trigger 2 more Guardian Sentinels. This will complete 1 cycle. You'll have to drive far enough away, roughly 200 meters, where it doesn't say you're in combat or danger anymore, and relog. After gathering all the Guardian material and data, you can buy the commodity components at certain stations. I'd recommend scanning the systems on the way there and back, that way you have a pretty sizable credit from exploration data. If you have any questions about the process, or feel there's a better way of going about things, please let me know in the comments. If you're also interested, I can upload a full, unedited material gathering run. I hope you found this information helpful, and I definitely recommend spending a few hours going and gathering the materials for the FSD booster and the shield reinforcements. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, please subscribe to stay tuned for when more future content comes out, or follow me on Twitch to see when I go live.